What is the best translation of the Bible? Have you ever wondered that? How do we choose the right one for ourselves or for our kids? NIV, NCV, NASB, ESV, KJV. It's confusing, isn't it? But it doesn't have to be. In this video, I will break down the 3 types of translations that are available and what each of them do well and where they fall short. And make sure you stay tuned to the end where I will reveal what I believe is the best translation of the Bible and why. If you've ever taken the time to study this, you'll know that the Bible didn't just drop out of thin air one day, all red-lettered and leather-bound. In fact, through much of church history, most Christians never even owned a Bible. There were no printing presses, and honestly, most people couldn't read anyway, so it would have done them little good. The truth is, we are spoiled today with so many translations to choose from. But why are there so many? Maybe you've wondered that too. Why not just have one and stick with that? How can God's Word read more than one way? Well, all of our modern versions are translations, meaning they were translated from one language into another. The Bible was written in 3 original languages: Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. And in order for us to read it in English, translators needed to match the original words and ideas with words and phrases in our language. It's a little bit like a puzzle. See, some words and phrases make sense in one language but don't have an exact equivalent in another. So we use our words to express their ideas. In fact, the Greek language alone has 5 million words in it, whereas English only has a piddly 1 million. Greek has 5 words for love, but English only has 1. So there are always editorial decisions to be made. Translations are a different attempt to bridge that gap. Don't worry, the vast majority of them do a great job. So there are 3 main types of translations. The first is called word for word. This is the ESV, the NASB, the Amplified Bible, and the King James Version. These versions are dedicated to translate as close as possible, word for word, what the original Greek and Hebrew say. Now, first, that might sound like the only reasonable way to approach this, but you'll soon see why others have opted for a different plan of attack. These translations have some real strengths. If you're studying the Bible to teach or dig deep, word for word is the best place to start. They give you the closest window to the original in terms of word choice and structure. They are fabulous for accuracy and figuring out the exact meaning of the original authors. But they do have a drawback. Sometimes they can sound a little clunky. You see, Greek and English don't structure their sentences the same way. And with a word-for-word translation, often you have to go back and read it a few times to get the gist of the passage. They are also written with a big vocabulary, so it's not accessible to everyone. By the way, one word about the King James. It's the one with all the thee and thous and shalt nots. Instead of saying, "Where is my Bible?" the King James would read, "Where dost thou putteth mine scriptures and scrolls?" Those are remnants from the 16th century way of talking that don't really exist anymore. Some argue they didn't even back then, but that's a story for another video. It's just proof that over time, even English has changed, so translating is a constant process. The Amplified Bible is unique in this category, as it gives you all the synonyms in brackets for major words and phrases. It's much longer, but it really drives the imagery into your brain, seeing all the ways that word is used. Next, we have the thought-for-thought translations, or dynamic equivalent. Here, they try and take the original thought, like a full sentence, and communicate it in English the way that we would now. Word order here is less important. This is the New International Version and the New Living Translation. They aim to give you the sense of a passage in a way that you would understand and connect with. There are some real advantages to thought-for-thought translations. They use modern words and phrases that you already understand to convey the biblical truths. And they end up being a much more readable translation for most people with a more accessible vocabulary. When I preach, I sometimes like to use the NLT for any long parable or story. It just flows in a way that some of the word-for-word translations don't. Personally, I also find them a little more memorable, but maybe that's just me. As for cons, well, they're not quite as accurate to the original text, so if you want to know the real meaning of a text, and it comes down to the word-for-word order and structure, you will need to go back to a word-for-word translation or dig into a commentary. Our last category is not actually even a translation at all. It's called a paraphrase. That's where the translator didn't even try to work word by word or sentence by sentence, but took whole paragraphs at a time and expressed them how we would today. These are paraphrases like Eugene Peterson's The Message. Some people love them. Bono, the lead singer of the band U2, raved about it after he read it cover to cover. I know the rock star's opinions don't really count in Bible translation, but that is pretty cool. Some people have called the Passion Translation a paraphrase, but the truth is it isn't either. I would just offer you one word of caution with the Passion, as the author has added words and phrases and sections that don't appear in the original text, and that can lead to some pretty confusing places. Paraphrases are wonderful for accessing the emotion of the original text and painting some inspiring word pictures and visuals. Peterson's turn of phrase is absolutely beautiful at times, but they are rather poor for studying and building theology on top of. If you use a paraphrase, you should always use it as a secondary Bible with a more accurate translation first. So, which one is the best? Well, that's kind of a trick question. See, the best translation is the one that you will use regularly and hear the voice of God through. That's what matters most. We have so many great options. If you ask me, a word-for-word translation like the NASB is best for study. A thought-for-thought translation like the NIV is best for daily use, and a paraphrase is great for accessing the emotion of a passage. I personally use the NIV Study Bible 80% of the time. The notes at the bottom are a lifesaver, even for a pastor. In fact, I would recommend a study Bible to everyone no matter what translation you use. Honestly, no one translation has the market cornered. Try a few. You will be amazed at what you will learn when you start digging for yourself. If you enjoyed this video, let me just encourage you to hit that like button and subscribe and ring that notification bell. Or go to chrisquiring.com and sign up for my newsletter to find out more of the writing and recording that I've been doing lately. Thanks so much for watching.